We are live, just letting you know, Chair.
Thank you very much.
I think if you want to go ahead and get started, you're welcome to, unless you need to wrap something up first.
No, we are good to go. Let's go ahead and call this meeting to order, and we'll go ahead and get the roll call going, and we'll go from there.
All righty. Aberdeen.
Will Mullaney present.
Anger. Apex. Scarborough. Chatham County. Oh, you're on mute, but I see you.
Sorry, present, Amanda.
The city of Durham. Do we have anybody from city of Durham? Durham County. Holly Springs.
Holly Springs, Chris DeShazer is here.
All right. Johnston County.
Butch Lauder, Johnson County, here.
Lee County.
Kirk Smith, Lee County, present.
Moore County. Orange County.
Jean Hamilton, Orange County, here.
Sally Green, alternate here.
Pittsburgh.
Pamela Baldwin, Town of Pittsburgh, present.
And John Bonnet's alternate, present.
Thank you. Sanford.
Rebecca Salmon, City of Sanford, present.
Selma.
McAllister, Town of Selma, here.
And Wake County. And I know Susan had already emailed me and said that she would not be here, but we do have quorum.
All right. Thank you very much. That brings us into getting to know CPRC. And I've got some notes here that I need to put down real quick. These out. With that being said, the getting to know CPRC has been a really cool thing that I'm glad that Chair Gant started for us. It is good to know our history as CPRC, and particularly for the newer members and members that haven't been part of the board a long time. It is important to understand where we have come from to get an idea where we need to go. So this get to know CPRC. In 1972, a resolution was adopted by Chapel Hill, Orange County, City of Durham, Durham County, Raleigh, and Wake County to merge from the Research Triangle Regional Planning Commission into the newly formed Triangle J Council of Governments. Within the resolution, the following staff activities were proposed for the first 2 years of the new Triangle J organization. 1, work toward preparation of a regional plan. 2, keep economic and population data up to date and readily available. 3, readily available knowledge of federal grants and programs. 4, first of 2 years work on preparation of general aviation systems plan. 5, work towards preparation of a water quality management plan. 6, continuation of housing studies. 7, work toward a regional solid waste plan. 8, continued development, of a computer-based physical development information system. 9, coordination and consultation with programs of planning for the elderly. 10, review of local applications for federal grants. 11, provision of planning advice to localities. 12, cooperation with Raleigh and Wake County of new system of land development regulation for the region. So with that stemming from 1972, it seems we have taken some good steps at continuing that list of activities into current day. As you look at particularly programs for planning for the elderly, work toward preparation of a water quality management plan. As we see regionalization occurring throughout our region, we've got a lot that still is on our plate today from the 1972. So a neat little piece as far as it relates to getting to know CPRC. Anybody have anything to add to that? All right, we'll keep marching right along. We've got review of the agenda. Is there any changes, subtractions, additions that needs to be made to the agenda before us?
Mr. Chair, this is Lee Worsley. I would ask that you consider moving the consent agenda before number 5 business. That way, staff members that are on that have items on the consent agenda can leave the meeting before the longer visioning session that we're going to have, if that pleases you and the executive committee.
Sounds like a good plan to me. Moving consents number 6 up to 5 and moving business down to 6. Are there any objections to that move? Hearing none, we will make that move, and then I will go ahead and approve the agenda with that amendment. So with that, we're getting past the review of the agenda. That brings us into presentations and recognition. So with that, we do have new executive committee members, and we'll give a little orientation piece in there as well. So new executive committee members, Ms. Chevelle Harmon and Mr. Chris DeShazer. Ms. Chevelle Harmon of Andrew, Chris DeShazer of Holly Springs are new members of the executive committee. Ms. Harmon serving as second vice chair, and Mr. DeShazer serving as secretary treasurer. So Lee, if you would kind of give them a short overview of the executive committee, and we'll go from there.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chair. If we can, there we are. I didn't know if Ms. Harmon or Mr. DeShazer wanted to say anything. They are both present, so wanted to give them an opportunity to introduce themselves if they want to, and then we'll do a quick review of the duties of the executive committee.
Absolutely.
I'll go quickly. I'm Chris DeShazer, town council person, have been on the council for 2 years, and am excited about this opportunity. And from Holly Springs, thank you.
Hi there, my name's Chevelle. I am from the town of Anger. I'm also excited to be here, humbled for the opportunity to serve in a different way. So glad to be here.
Thank you to you both. Thank you for volunteering and being willing to be an officer, which means you're both now part of the executive committee. So we do this every September when we have new officers and some changes in the executive committee. If we can go to the next slide. I just want to really briefly talk about the board versus the executive committee. And on the screen right here, you have sort of the composition of both bodies. So the Board of Delegates is the governing board for the organization. One delegate from each member government, one alternate delegate we would like to see from every member government. They have to be elected members. We do allow a liaison opportunity, and only Chapel Hill qualifies for this when the meeting dates of the member governing board directly conflict with the Board of Delegates meeting. And in that liaison position, they do not have voting authority. So on the board, one vote per jurisdiction on all matters. There is a way to do weighted voting if that's called, and I'm not sure that's been done in more than 20 years, a weighted vote. So really the culture and the way we try to do business is, everybody has an equal voice as part of the region. The votes must be cast by the delegate, and in their absence, the alternate can cast a vote. But obviously, we always welcome both the delegate and the alternate to both the board and the executive committee. if they'd like to attend. The makeup of the executive committee is the officers. So that's our chair, first vice chair, second vice chair, secretary treasurer, and the immediate past chair. And then at a minimum, there are 2 delegates from each county. Each county government is automatically given a seat on the executive committee. And then if a county doesn't already have an officer that's a municipal delegate, those municipalities in that county get together and choose somebody to be on the executive committee. And so right now, so normally if we had officers in each county from a municipality, if we didn't have double officers in a county, we would have 14 executive committee members. Right now, we have a couple officers that are in Wake County, and also the immediate past chair. So our executive committee, at least through December, has grown to 16. And then I know Mr. Gant is not running. And in January, the executive committee would go down to 15. So just for your information, and because we're at 16 now, your quorum has changed from 6 to 7 members. So that's a little bit about the composition of the 2 bodies. If you'll go to the next slide, we'll talk about the authority. And basically what I like to say is that the executive committee is authorized by the board to act as the board and to take any action that the board can take, really except for like 3 things. The executive committee cannot adopt the annual budget resolution, the annual budget for Central Pines, but you can adopt budget amendments, which come before you today. Sort of attached to that are member dues. So the executive committee can't change member dues because that's part of the budget. The other thing is that the executive committee cannot amend the bylaws or basically approve charter changes to be forwarded to our local government members. Of course, the executive committee can't approve the meeting schedule for the board of delegates. They have to do that on their own. And then the other major thing is that the executive committee can't hire or fire the executive director. That is the board's responsibility. But the board has delegated my performance evaluation each year to the executive committee. So everything else, the executive committee has full authority and ability to vote on and to weigh in on. So that's a quick overview of the board versus the executive committee. And also just for practical matters, with the executive committee being a smaller number, trying to get 50 people together versus 14 or 16. That's why we had the executive committee meeting more often, dealing with more day-to-day business of the organization. So that's a quick overview. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have about the roles of the 2 bodies. But I hope that helps sort of put into context, especially for our 2 new executive committee members. So, Mr. Chair, I'll defer and see if there are any questions. Thank you.
Yep. Any questions at all? Any questions at all? I know everybody's disappointed that we can't fire Lee as a group.
Sorry.
Very important as an executive committee. We stay incredibly informed when agility is needed for decisions with CPRC. That's where I've seen the executive committee come in the clutch to sort through things in my time on the Central Pines Regional Council. But usually these meetings are very quick, very straight to the point, but a lot of information can get packed in these meetings as time goes on. Lee and staff do a wonderful job of packaging this information for us so that we can digest it quickly and that we can, again, are ready to make the decisions that need to be made in a timely manner. So thank you for that, staff. Any questions about any of that information further? All right, very cool. Moving right along. No public hearings to speak of. And then That brings us to the consent agenda, which we've moved to 5, and then we'll go to 6. So with that, on consent, we have the draft minutes from June 25, 2025. We have approval of new CPRC rates, tariffs, and legal review board members. We've got Triangle West TPO sole source approval for Remix Transit and Streets, an updated fee schedule, and budget amendment number 1. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
Mr. Chair, I do have a question.
Yes.
Kirk Smith, Lee County. The
Yes.
Triangle TPO sole source remix transit and streets resolution, is that included in the Central Pines Rural Planning Organization as one of the organizations that can use this?
Mr. Chair, would you like me to answer that?
You certainly can if you want to give an overview of kind of a quick overview of our interaction as far as our handling of the Triangle West.
Sure. And I'll be, Mr. Smith, I'll be happy to have Carol Fuller, who staffs the RPO, get up with you with further information. So I'll do the best I can to answer the question. So Triangle West as an MPO has a separate, so although they are part of the organization and we do cooperate on a number of things, they have a separate governing board. And to my knowledge, this product is for their use. And I do not believe it's available for the RPO. Now, that's not saying that it maybe couldn't be used by the RPO if it was needed, but this is a product that the MPO needs and is determined through their urban work plan is necessary for the work that they do. And as a separate organization and separate governance, they have that authority to make that decision. And then we simply, as the administrative agency, pay the bills for them. But because they fall under our budget, the board has to make that approval. I hope that's clear. But I can get you more information if you'd like, sir.
Well, when I was reading the contract, it was implying that organizations within the organization could use it. I was just curious.
I'll be happy to get some clarity around that for you, sir, and see if there's some opportunities for some collaboration around that and can report back.
Thank you.
Do we have any other questions related to the items on consent agenda?
And Mr. Chair, just a note, I pulled the foreign trade zone item. It was not ready to come to the executive committee, so that will be before the board in October. Just wanted to make that note.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much for that. All right. Any other concerns, comments related to the consent agenda? All right, hearing none, do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Kirk Smith, Lee County, so approved.
Do I have a second?
Pamela Baldwin, Town of Pittsburgh, second.
We'll give that to Pamela Baldwin, Town of Pittsburgh. And if you would, please take my roll call.
Okay. Aberdeen,
Wilma Laney, aye.
Anger,
Chevelle Harmon, I, Town of Anger.
Apex, Carborough, Chatham County,
Amanda Robertson, I, Chatham.
City of Durham, Durham County, Holly Springs,
Holly Springs, Krista Shazer, aye.
Johnston County,
Butch Lauder, Johnson County, aye.
Lee County,
Kirk Smith, Lee County, affirmative.
Moore County, Orange County,
Jean Hamilton, Orange County, aye.
Pittsburgh,
Pamela Baldwin, Town of Pittsburgh, aye.
Sanford,
Rebecca Salmon, City of Sanford, I.
Selma.
Brian McAllister, Town of Selma, aye.
All right. Oh, and Wake County, but I know she's not here, but it passes.
Okay, thank you very much. And so that then brings us into our business, the Central Pines 2025-2026 Strategic Plan Visioning Session. We'll let Lee and Elena take this conversation away.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and members of the Executive Committee. We're excited to be launching our second iteration of our strategic plan. For those that were with us a few years ago, you may remember that we worked on our very first strategic plan a couple of years ago. And as we began that process, we reminded ourselves and talked to the board that we were going to be learning a lot through this process. And we have, we have done, I think, a really good job as staff tracking a plan without real good software or tracking mechanisms to do so. We've been cognizant of checking in on the plan. We've been thinking about measures, and I think we've learned a lot. And as I've done strategic plans, the implementation is sometimes very difficult, and I'm very proud of the staff. I'm excited about this new iteration. We've been able to find a little bit of money in the budget to be able to bring on a tracking mechanism for our strategic plan, which I think will make the data gathering and the visualization and the dashboarding of the data much better and actually accessible on our website and give all sorts of good information, much easier for staff to be able to actually enter activity rather than on a clunky PowerPoint, which is what we were doing to try to track our progress, because that's all we had. So I'm excited about that. And we wanted to go ahead and start some visioning around the plan. We've been talking to our leadership team. Part of my tour of local governments has been particularly leaning toward hearing from managers and others about what they see that they're facing in the region. And so all of this will come together in beginning to shape our plan for the board to consider in 2026. So if you can go to the next slide. Go on to the next. So we just wanted to check in on the mission and the vision statement. I would certainly encourage the executive committee and the board that this is not where our focus is. We took a lot of time to set mission and vision a couple years ago. We're going to be really focusing more on, can everybody see the slides? I think Ms. Green can't. Can people see the slides?
I can see it.
Okay. All right. So I think we're really going to be focusing on initiatives and goals and the mission and the vision. Probably in another iteration of the plan would be when we would really come back to focus on that. But I did want to give a moment to look at these and just to see if there was anything in the mission or the vision that jumped out as really out of alignment or not correct. And I'll make sure and read it in case people can't see the presentation, they can hear it. So the mission statement for Central Pines is that Central Pines is a member-driven organization serving as a leading resource to connect communities and enhance their strategic priority outcomes through regional policy, collaboration, and technical assistance at the local, regional, and state level. So that's the mission. The vision is Central Pines Regional Council is the premier regional organization that addresses the needs of members by leading work focused on comprehensive, innovative, timely, and reliable results for the region. So I think I'll pause, see if any members feel like our mission or vision is just out of alignment or have a question, but this was a major focus of the plan a couple years ago. We did not have a vision statement, and our mission statement was very much out of alignment. All right, we'll go to the next slide. We'll keep trucking along. So part of the strategic planning process 2 years ago was to reaffirm or to establish our strategic focus areas. And this is something as we begin moving toward, we will want to reaffirm with you. Some of these really can't be changed based on our commitments to the state, like the Aging and Human Services. We are the area agency on aging. But most of the rest of the ones have opportunities to be changed or tweaked or new areas added. Of course, there are financial and all sorts of other implications around that. But as we begin this conversation, we'll have some time, maybe not tonight, but when we have our next session with you to really dive into these. And so I put these up really not so much for discussion tonight, but to have you really thinking about, in your local government, you would organize based on departments, but you're going to have strategic sort of big goals, right? Because of the type of work we do, we really try to organize in these focus areas since our budget is 50 programs. And so as you see us organize and talk about leads and department heads, they really fall under these areas. So just again, to make sure everybody can see them or hear them if they can't see them, our strategic focus areas are aging and human services, community and economic development, environment and resilience, housing, member support and strategy, and transportation. All right. So if we'll go to the next slide, I'm going to let Elena take control at this point and talk a little bit about the membership satisfaction survey, because obviously this will help inform and actually are some of the measures we include in our strategic plan. So Elena?
Yeah, thank you, Lee. Yeah, so this is our membership satisfaction survey, which many of you took probably a month ago, and we appreciate all of your input. We've done this 2 years in a row now as a response to our strategic plan. We identified a number of metrics that we wanted to track from our membership to help us measure if we were making progress towards our strategic plan. And so this has been a really important way for us to understand if we're making progress towards those goals. So this is just a little summary of this year's results in comparison to the previous year. So you can see both what we heard from you this last month, but also what we heard from you over time. So we heard from a pretty wide range of respondents. You can see we're very happy that we have respondents from every one of our counties, and a wide range of roles of respondents as well. So a number of folks that are senior leadership, which we considered to be either the manager or the assistant manager, a significant number of elected officials, staff, and then some partners and community groups. And we were very happy to meet our goal of over 100 responses, which was what we were working towards this year. You can go to the next slide. So we have 4 metrics that I'm going to cover, strategic metrics tonight. The first that we are tracking is I am satisfied with Central Pines' work in the past year. And you can see 2 graphs on the slide. One is from FY25 survey, which was last year's, and one is from FY26's survey, which is this year's. And it's broken down across a spectrum of very satisfied, somewhat satisfied, neither satisfied nor dissatisfied, somewhat dissatisfied, and very dissatisfied. And so you can see there's been some slight change from last year to this year. We saw a greater number of folks really feel neither satisfied nor dissatisfied. Some slight changes in satisfaction and a small percentage that indicated somewhat dissatisfied. You can go to the next slide. The next metric that we've been tracking is I know who to contact at CPRC when I have a specific request or need. And so again, you can see the comparison between last year's survey and this year's survey across a spectrum of strongly agree all the way down to strongly disagree. And we were happy to see that increase pretty substantially of folks that felt like they knew who to contact, which we think is very important. You can go to the next slide. Thank you. Central Pines is a leading organization in the region. This metric aligns directly with our vision statement. And so you can see again the comparison from the right, which was last year, to the left, which was last year, to the right, which is this year. And again, we were pleased to see a pretty large increase in respondents who said they strongly or somewhat agree that we are a leading organization in the region. And then the last metric is this statement. Our region has a cohesive vision for land use, open space, transportation, and housing. And again, you can see that compared. This metric changed pretty substantially in some areas. So again, you can see, or notably, you can see last year only 3% strongly agreed that our region had a cohesive vision, 33% somewhat agreed. And this year, that's gone up to 18% that strongly agree and 36% that somewhat agree, which is definitely a good thing. That's it. I'll turn it back over to Lee to talk about your role.
Yeah, thank you. I wanted to pause and see if any of the committee members had questions about the survey results. We will, of course, be still looking at the results and we'll get more detailed information, but we thought it was important to go ahead and get some high-level data. So you could be putting that with some of the visioning stuff we're going to be doing tonight, but did want to stop and see if there were any questions. Ms. Green?
Thank you. Yeah, I was interested in the increase from 3 to 18% on feeling like we have a cohesive regional vision. What do you attribute that to? Do you think, yeah, just tell me what you think you attribute that to.
I'd love, Elena, do you have any insight? Because I was also intrigued by that one, and I'm not sure I have a good answer.
Yeah, I mean, one comment I'll say, we have not completed analysis. And so one thing we're interested is to dive into if there's different roles that have different answers to that question. Because one thing that we were very aware of last year was that what we considered to be sort of our key stakeholders, which was elected officials and city county managers, were the ones that did not agree with this statement very much. And so we have not done a full breakdown by role yet or by county. We're curious to see if that depends on where folks are in the region. But I don't know that I have a great answer at this point why that changed, but it is a very drastic change for sure.
Okay. So obviously the executive committee and the board have a really critical role in helping us with the strategic plan framework. And that begins tonight. And so really tonight is this first bullet. It's really beginning to identify strategic issues for the organization. And so we're going to really encourage you to take off that hat somewhat of being a locally elected official for your jurisdiction, although that is still critically important, but really to be thinking regionally, thinking about our entire 7 counties, what's impacting the region, obviously what's impacting your organization, and also the region. But, we do this every day and we know how difficult it is from time to time to do that. And so just wanted to encourage you to be thinking regionally around these issues and to be sort of blue sky thinking, right? These are the opportunities to brainstorm And we're not going to be trying to put guardrails around you tonight around funding or what the COG's role is or anything like that. We want you to be really open and really imaginative about the what ifs, about the possibilities, because that's how you get into really interesting and good conversations about strategy. So if we go to the next slide. And this is our definition of strategic issues. So we certainly defer to you all as elected officials. We may not have hit the mark here, or you may have a different take or a different look at it, and that is okay. But we thought this would just maybe begin to get you thinking about what a strategic issue is. And so obviously we would want to know, or we want to think about whether it impacts our ability to achieve our mission. While we want you to be blue sky thinking, we also want to make sure that we're within the mission of the organization. Or do we need to talk about the mission? And I think the mission, we're pretty dead on. So we want you to be thinking around that mission statement. And we also want to be thinking long term. Although what we do in the next 3, 6, 9 months is certainly very important, we're more interested tonight in thinking about 2 years out, 5 years out. What do we need to be really doing the marathon work to really advance the region and our own organization? And we're also looking at those big picture items that are going to have a profound impact on our organization or the region. The smaller things we will get to, and those will come up in initiatives and goals, but we're really thinking about those big issues that the region's facing that's going to take our collective effort and a regional view to really impact. And is it going to impact key stakeholders such as your employees, our employees, the local government members? Obviously, we're very interested in things that are going to have significant impact on our 50 local governments. And then obviously financial ramifications, whether negative or positive, I think are interesting and important to talk about as we have this conversation tonight. Okay, next slide. So since we're transitioning a little bit, let me stop there. I'm sorry, can you go back one slide? I apologize. And just see if anybody has any questions about how we're framing a strategic issue. Okay. All right, next slide. So we're trying to give you a little bit of a taste of what our timeline is. We're not sure exactly what that end date is. We want to be done probably first, second quarter of 2026. But we're doing this strategic plan internally. And so we have to balance that with the other work that we're doing. So we've charted out a path from today to our staff leadership retreat. And then once we get to that point in time, we'll have a much better idea of sort of how we'll begin wrapping it up. But tonight we're beginning the process. I've talked to the board chair, and we would love to. I know we don't ask you to be on site much as an executive committee, but we would really like to try to do a morning session on the 15th of November, which is a Saturday. I know that, but this is where we would really start diving in, and we'll poll you to see if this date works. And if it doesn't, we'll figure something out. But it's a date that seems to work with, elections are over, before the holidays. It seemed like a potentially good date. So we'll poll and see if it works. But we would ask just a morning. This would not be all day. This would not be all weekend, to really start diving in on those focus areas, strategic initiatives. We also might invite some other regional councils from across the nation and major metros to come in based on the themes that we hear tonight, to talk about what other regional councils do around some of the big topics that you all develop. So this is little bit of a timeline of where we go from tonight. Next slide. So it's really important, I think, for visioning to be thinking about the future, but to be sort of anchored in the reality of what we're dealing with as a region and where we've come from. So we're going to do just a little bit of context setting, what we see as sort of trends and what we're facing, to hopefully give you a little bit more information to do the visioning. Once we get through some of this stuff, that's when we're going to be mostly quiet and ask for your participation. So thank you for your patience. All right, next slide. So a little bit about our origins. And again, I'm also thankful for former Chair Gant. Some of this probably isn't a surprise because we've talked about some of this. This is a really, really interesting picture because these are some of the individuals from both the RTP Foundation and our first director, Mr. Pearson Stewart, talking about the Research Triangle Park. And we were formed in 1959 as the Research Triangle Regional Planning Commission. And our founding purpose, I think this is really interesting, was to coordinate multi-jurisdictional development and leverage the Research Triangle Park for regional growth. And I think that's important. And I say this to a lot of people, that we have a really interesting and unique region, because our strength isn't because of one central city. You know, if you look at Atlanta or DC or Columbus, you see this big city in the middle of the region, right? And they're sort of the ones that drive everything. That's not our region, right? If you look at the center of our region, we have a state park, an airport, and the Research Triangle Park. And surrounding that are lots of awesome different communities that contribute to us as a major metro. And so I think that's a strategic advantage for us, but it also admittedly sometimes can make planning and coming together a little more complex, because we have lots of local governments rather than one big one sort of telling everybody what they're going to do. So as we've evolved, we've welcomed the Area Agency on Aging in the early 70s. We expanded to Johnston, Lee, and Chatham counties in the early 70s, welcomed Moore County at the turn of the century, and welcomed the Triangle West Transportation Planning Organization, what used to be DCHC, in 2022. And now we have 50 local governments ranging from 300 residents to over 1 million. And so this region has changed a lot since that 1959 picture. Next slide. I'm not going to read through these, but these are a key regional milestone. So we've had a lot of different roles in shaping the region, from development guides to regional water plans to world-class region conferences. We've worked in mental health, and we helped with a model elementary school and model high school. So there's a lot of things that we've been involved with in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. And if you'll go on to the next slide, that's continued into the 90s, 2000s, and 2010s. So it's really interesting to see the role we played with cable TV and with telephone, local and toll calling, and connecting the region around that, the foreign trade zone, and then in the 2010s and 2020s, beginning to talk about, even though it's mentioned, even in 1972, really doubling down and talking more about housing in the late 2010s and now in 2020. So next slide. So that's one of the cool things about our organization. You know, we can change based on the needs of the region. And that's where this is really critical. You know, what are those needs over the next 2, 5, 10 years. Because going into this graph, it's not a surprise to anybody. Our region is growing very, very fast. And it's not just what I think we would call 10, 15 years ago, the core counties of Wake, Durham, and Orange. They're still growing very quickly. But now we have the ring counties or the other counties around the region growing very rapidly. So just since 2000, we've grown 72%. We're a region of 2.1 million. But the next slide will show that this growth is just going to continue in a very, very rapid pace. By 2050, 3.2 million, 159% growth since 2000. You see the three largest counties there, but I want you to look also off to the right. The growth percentages are astounding for almost every county. Even the county with the slowest amount of growth, Orange County, is still 25%, which a lot of areas would just love. But we're seeing 42% growth, Moore County, 62% growth, Wake, 55% growth. And then if you were to go just outside of our region, we've talked about this, Franklin County, Harnett County, they're looking at 60, 70% growth as well. If you look at a 10-county region, we're approaching 4 million by 2050. So just a lot of growth in a very short amount of time. And so I've got some more slides here. If you go to the next one, it's not just that the region is growing, we're becoming more urbanized. And that means more opportunity for more complexity and around planning. And one specific example is around transportation planning that I think is really important just to think about. Every 10 years, after the census, urbanized areas are designated, and the urbanized areas that are over 50,000 have an opportunity to form their own MPO or transportation planning organization. And so prior to 2020, there were two. There was Campo and DCHC. After the 2020 census, two additional urbanized areas were recognized, the Clayton area and the Pinehurst, Aberdeen, Southern Pines area. Clayton, that area in Clayton could have peeled off of Campo and created their own MPO. They decided to stay with Campo. The Pinehurst area created their own MPO. So we have 3 MPOs in the region. In 2030, I think there's a real possibility that you could see Sanford qualify for an MPO. You also have Goldsboro and Wilson coming very close to the region. And this isn't a comment on transportation or MPOs. It's just as we become more urbanized, the planning complexities are going to increase as well. And so we need to be mindful of that and how that impacts the region, how that impacts how we plan together. And it obviously impacts not just transportation, but other things like housing and infrastructure and all of those things. So if you go to the next slide. This is a little bit of a different look at that those urban areas. So the yellow are the urban areas in the region. So this is 1990. And if you progress to the next slide to 2000, you see how those urban areas really started to really blow up in Wake and Johnston and up in Durham and down in Lee and southern Moore County. So if you go to the next one, which is the 2050, the green is sort of adding, and you're basically beginning to fill in from Orange County all the way down to Johnston. You're beginning to see Goldsboro and Wilson creeping very close to those county lines. You see Sanford beginning to come up toward Wake County, And obviously you see Fayetteville. I mean, we haven't even talked about Fayetteville, but the influence of Fayetteville coming north. And then to the west, you see Burlington and Greensboro, and you see all of this beginning to urbanize in one very sort of large crescent across our entire region. Next slide. Just a different way of looking at it. These are these urbanized areas over 50,000, which means there are opportunities for new MPOs or new transportation planning organizations. And so these are the areas as of the 2020 census. And if you go to the next slide, this is just a projection. I don't know if this will happen or not, but these are ones that could have the possibility of hitting that 50,000 mark. I do think Sanford and Wilson are very real possibilities. I'm not sure Smithfield will get there by 2030, but there's another potential layer of complexity and planning that could enter the mix as soon as 2030 or 2032. So next slide. And of course, we come back to Research Triangle Park, and a lot of folks didn't know if the RTP was going to do anything back in the 50s and the 60s, but our organization and the folks that were in your seats back in the 60s and the 50s said, hey, we're going to plan for it. We need to be ready if it happens. And there are a lot of people that have dedicated a lot of time in thinking about the region. And now it's our turn, right, to think about how this region will continue to be wonderful and high quality of life and really a place that we want to continue to live. And so RTP in the 60s was thinking about that. And if you go to the next slide, they're continuing to think about it. I know many of you have thought about or heard about the RTP 3.0, right? What's going to happen in the RTP and with density? And so I think us thinking about the region as a whole, as RTP is thinking about sort of their third iteration, is very timely and really harkens back to the 50s and the 60s and the original purpose of this organization. So I'm really excited about what's ahead. I really appreciate and value your input and so thankful that you all want to be involved and want to be thinking regionally. And it's what makes this organization just really special. And so we're excited to hear more. And if you go to the next slide, we're going to get into the activity. But before we do that, I'm curious if anybody has any questions on sort of the background about sort of where we are in the level setting.
I'll just make a comment that it's impressive to see our staff being agile to get this conversation started, particularly as all of our counties right now, as you displayed, are quite frankly getting the face with growth. With that growth comes the need for us to all change our strategies on how we approach not only our individual municipalities, our counties, and our regions.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chair. You're breaking up just a little bit, just so you know, but I got what you were saying. We appreciate that. So I think with that, I'm going to let Elena take it from here. She is a wonderful facilitator, and she's going to help us go through the SWAT SOAR activity. So Elena, thank you for being willing to do this, and thank you for all your work getting this put together.
Thanks, Lee. So we are going to shift into the activity, and I want to make sure before I jump in, this is going to be both interactive, but also require you all to have some time where you're reflecting and writing down your thoughts. So if you don't already have a pen and paper or a computer that you can write on, just encourage you to go ahead and get that so that when we jump into the portions where you'll need it, you've got it ready to go. So we are going to be doing a SOAR activity, and you can go to the next slide, Hannah. Thank you. So this is going to be a really broad activity that is going to shape your retreat that we will have later in the year. Some of you may have gone through SOAR activities before. They're also very likely known as SWATs, which are a little bit different, but a similar process where you're going through different elements of the future of your organization or the topic that you're focusing on. And so I'm going to quickly explain what each of those letters stands for, and then give some instructions, and then we'll head into the actual activity. So the acronym is SOAR. It stands for Strengths, Opportunities, Aspirations, and Results. And just diving into each of those a little bit more, Strengths is really focused on what we as a board, you as a board, and us as an organization are most proud of, and what makes our organization unique. Opportunities are external trends that provide opportunities or chances for the organization to grow, expand, pivot, or have more impact. Aspirations are the long-term goals that we have and you have as a board for our region, that our organization can potentially help make an impact on. And results are what you want to see in the future. So how do we know if we've succeeded moving towards those long-term goals? What does that look like? So the way we are going to do this activity, we're going to go one acronym's letter at a time. I'll give you about 3 to 5 minutes, depending on how long folks need, to write down your individual responses for each of these elements. And then we're going to do a report out. So I know everyone's virtual, but you're going to bear with me. I'm going to be probably calling on folks because we're going to go one at a time. And one thing that is important to note is that you're going to report out, but we're also going to ask you to do 2 different things in that report out. So first, unless you're the first person, because no one else will have said the same thing as you. First, you're going to indicate if you have any other items written down that have already been said by another person. So you're going to have a list. Each of you will have a list. And as you're reporting out, if someone before you has said something that you also wrote down, you can simply say, I also had this item. Please mark that. And then you'll share any additional items that you had. And this will just be an opportunity for us to gather areas where there is not necessarily consensus, but just general focus from you all as a board. And what we are going to be doing as we're walking through this is we have some staff who are going to be documenting what you're writing or what you're sharing on the screen. So it'll show up here, so we can all see sort of the themes that are emerging from what you are sharing. Are there any questions on the SOAR activity generally or on this process for it? Fabulous. Okay, we can go to the next slide. Thank you. So we're going to start with strengths. And I'm going to give, it's 7:01 p.m. So we will give folks until 7:06 and see how that time does for us. So take a few minutes. You know, nothing you write down is incorrect at this point. There's no guardrails. What are you proud of us as an organization? What makes our organization unique? Take some time to reflect on those questions. All right, we are at time, so we're going to get started. I actually have two folks who volunteered to go first because they've shared in the chat. Um, so Commissioner Smith, I know you put your strengths, your answers in the chat, and we can translate those onto the slides. I'm curious if you're willing to share any context you think might be helpful about any of those that you shared.
Well, let's see. Communication flow. We get consistent information from the COG. Services provided, we consistently am always getting my DocuSign documents to follow through on all of our funding needs. Interoperability as far as, again, working with housing and the age assistance for our aged population. And of course, planning and coordination goes along with information sharing as far as well as resources provided.
Thank you very much. That's great context. And I'm going to just quickly pause. Hannah, if you don't, it looks like the back behind the scenes typing isn't working, so we may have to just pivot, which is another strength of ours. So she's just going to, there we go. Perfect. So it must just not show up in presenter view. Okay. Thank you, Commissioner. Is there anyone who would like to go next?
I'll jump in. This is Chris. I like where Kirk is going with communication. I said the strengths is that we have a diverse group of folks across multiple areas. Some of us are farther along than others, and some are farther along than we are, so we can all learn from each other. And I think that's as I went through my opportunities, aspirations, and results, there was a theme about that. Because the example that I will give you is Wake Forest did microtransit. We had a microtransit meeting. We learned a lot about that. I took it back to our team. We just launched microtransit. Well, we just approved it. It will be launched. And a lot of that was from the learnings from that. So having folks that have done it before is a huge strength of this organization.
Thank you. That's a great one. I see in the chat, Chevelle can't speak out right now, so she shared her thoughts. Resources readily available, which I think is a ditto to Commissioner Smith's resources. A large org that can provide services beyond local limitations, and a wider variety of services. And then yes, Commissioner Bonnet's added a history of progressive work in strategic focus areas. Who would like to go next?
I can go next, Elena. This is Pamela Baldwin, Town of
Thank you.
Pittsburgh. They've already indicated a couple of things which I have, Kirk did, but one thing which I think is very, very important is the ability that Central Pines has in order to help member governments if they require additional help, such as in budgeting or things such as that, or if there is, say, if the town manager is not there, they can go there and sort of help the town if needed. So I think that's very important because I know Lee has done that in the past, and that's very important. I think that's a great strength.
Yeah, that's a great one. Being able to respond to our local governments
Yes.
when they need help. Thank you. Anyone else want to add to this list or there you go. Go ahead, Miss Laney.
We have large and small counties, and I think it's good that the smaller counties we have welcoming for everyone, and there's help for everyone, and I can that's very visible to me. I can see that, and I think that's a strength. All these counties are really kind of different. Moore County, where I am, is a lot of touristy places. We're Golf County, and then the other county is something else. But we can all, I think we all can learn from each other with that difference, and it helps us all.
Thank you, Ms. Laney. So just want to make sure that I know part of that was reflected. Another thing I heard was that there's differences within communities that can sort of amplify each other's, we can amplify each other's skill sets and uniqueness, I would say, across communities. Yeah.
Elena, this is Rebecca Salmon from Sanford. We're probably getting into the part that's going to be a lot of dittos, but really, so ditto on the having large and small units of government having a seat at the table, and that all those ideas are represented that we can learn from. I think a real strength is really just that there is a space that we have that we can take our individual hats off, put on a regional hat, and really have very functional and respectful conversations with each other. I think sometimes government gets a bad rap that we can't do that. And this is always a space where we're able to do that. Ditto on the great resources for our staffs when they need it, so that we just could be much more efficient and effective when we have those shared resources. It's a great data bank. Like when we have a specific project, you have so much access to just a depth of data, and we have a one place that we can go to pull stuff, and that's really helpful. Shared grant opportunities. We're stronger, I think, emphasizing the fact that we're stronger together when we do some of those grants. And then I think that there's a strength that Lee has created, that like a literal space. We talked when we first came on the board, and we were working on the concept of the sandbox idea, really a place to bring these ideas. I think that one of the things that happened was that when you all were doing the office transformation project, you actually created a literal space that represents that, where different groups of folks can come together and actually work on these projects. And I don't know anywhere else that we can go. You all have welcomed us in there. We can have group meetings in there. And it really does encourage that regional conversation. And I think that literal, actual space that represents our philosophy is a truly unique thing. That's it.
Thank you. Those were great.
This is Sally. I can follow that by just saying in a nutshell, our strength is staff expertise and dedication and leadership. And I want to call out Lee for that particular leadership strategy of really, I remember a few years ago, I mean, before the office transformation was, or as it was being planned, that was a major objective, was to have us not only to have the space, but to indicate to participating governments that yes, you can come have meetings here. We want you to do that. We want you to have this space of collaboration. Then a couple others that I would call out is good governance. I think the organization practices good governance, and I think the organization has a strong lobbying presence at the General Assembly, and I think it's only strong because the organization has a long and solid reputation.
Thank you very much. And I will just, Hannah or Grace, I'm not sure which one of you is typing at this moment, maybe both of you. Can you add specifically Lee next to leadership? Just because I think that is something to call out.
So, Elena, I don't think in whole sentences. I can only think in single words at a time. But I think a lot of it, adaptability. You'd mentioned ability to pivot. I mean, whether it was COVID or going to a building, or all of a sudden funds being cut at the federal level, and being able to adapt to that. The leadership, again, also start with Lee, but also look at the members of this board and the members of the whole Central Pines, the leadership there, the connectedness, and not just amongst our member institutions, but with other organizations outside at the state level, even at the federal level, that there's a lot of connectedness in the group, the knowledge, I think that's been mentioned, technical and otherwise, and also the diversity, which had been mentioned before, but we're different sizes,
different makeups of our economies, our people, just so many differences, but we can come together and share ideas and learn from each other. I think we talk about the micro transit, the same thing we did in Johnston County, but we learned from somewhere else on the fire. We're going to one tax district for our fire protection, and we talk with Wake County a lot on that. So those were the 5 kind of words that popped in my head when I think about our strengths.
Those are great. Thank you. Go ahead.
I think one of the words that I'd really love to see added, and it's probably going to go somewhere where we already have some things in there like communication flow and stuff, but I've got communicate, collaborate across just the departments in the region and the state. Like Butch said, I had just the more expanded area, not just in our own region, but I think that's a really important thing. But collaborate, because I think to me that brings our creative and best solutions to the table when we can collaborate and have different disciplines that can come to the table without the different experiences we have. I think working towards financial success is something that I think is also really important. And that is important in the region, but also locally, but an awareness of what we're trying to achieve to be successful. And we've got reason in Chatham to just be applauding that right now. And I think a lot of that has just the strength that we can all bring together, can support that, I think, for everybody. And also our aging population. I'm not sure how much others struggle with that and are concerned with that, but we have here in Chatham and are very concerned going forward. And I think it's one of the strengths that I know we have and that you guys have helped us with. Even though I'm new, I'm very aware of that, that's something that CPRC has done for us.
Thank you very much. So yeah, aging population. I know one other one that I don't know fully got up. There we go. The financial sustainability. Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner. Anyone else? I know there's a few others who have not had a chance to share. Is there anyone who would like to add to this list or ditto?
I'll hop in, Byron McAllister. Am I clear now, or am I still breaking up?
You're very clear.
Okay, very good, very good. So a lot of dittos, of course. The staff conversation and the collaboration conversation, particularly, and then the adaptability is definitely a ditto for me from what I wrote down. But then from kind of a more strategic standpoint, as far as physically, the amenities that we have within this region is a big asset for CPRC. When you're talking about the education system, our hospital systems, just the strength of our member governments alone. If you look around, even say a Greensboro area or a Charlotte area, you're hard to find areas with this many municipalities that are strong, particularly as you're looking at Wake County and beyond, and then growing at the rate we are with Johnston County, Durham County, Chatham County, Orange County. It is hard to find another area with this type of expertise, not only in Central Pines, but within the member governments as well.
It's a fabulous addition, Chair. Thank you. So yeah, strength of member governments, strength of the region, the expertise capacity we have here would be additions.
And then a little more from the location standpoint, particularly when it comes to rail, when it comes to air travel, we are a big player in the entire state. You know, we're having the conversation of building a tower at Johnston County, JNX right now. And then, of course, with Raleigh RDU and our surrounding communities, again, transportation, we probably have a situation that's second to none compared to other regions.
So access to key transportation elements, it's not the right word, but yeah, thank you. You're capturing it on the slide well. Anything else, Chair?
That's it for me.
Okay. Ms. Hamilton, I know you were about, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say ditto. I don't think the things that jumped out at me have been said things like the expertise that the staff brings for like federal and state grants, other technical assistance mentioned. We're urban and rural counties and different mixes, but everything that's been said is excellent.
Fabulous. Thank you. Okay. I'm just looking through the list to make sure that we've heard from everyone. I think we have. Okay. All right. We're going to keep moving just to keep us moving because I know we're keeping you longer than we normally do in executive committee meetings. So we're going to move to opportunities. We're going to do the same process, give you a few minutes to just reflect. We'll keep it to 5 minutes and then we'll share and we can do the ditto and add additions the way we did with the last one. So opportunities, writing down external trends that could allow for our organization to grow, expand, pivot, or have a larger impact. All right, folks can still keep writing if you are putting down additional answers. I just want to start adding in answers that we've got from folks. So I can see in the chat, Commissioner Smith. We've got those up on the slide now. Our world-class universities, business and job opportunities, world-class healthcare facilities, and recreational opportunities. Anything you want to specifically add about that, you're welcome to give context. And then Miss Councilmember Freeman, I see we've got her answer: opportunity in creating more equitable and inclusive communities with aging populations around infrastructure and resources, aging well, and sustainability. Commissioner Robertson. Great. We've got folks writing those up on here. Thank you very much. I won't keep reading them out while we're getting them written up here. All right. Thank you to those who put something in the chat. We've got those up on the slides, and let's add a ditto to resilience and emergency preparation because I see someone gave a thumbs up in the chat to that. We're going to count that as a ditto. Is there anyone who would like to unmute and share what you wrote down?
Hey, Elena, I'll go forward. And opportunities is artificial intelligence or AI, and working and going with my theme of earlier, working to learn from others in the other region.
Fabulous, thank you.
If I could tag on that, I would say that the infrastructure to have AI means we have water and land and all of those things in place for things like data centers. And also just realizing that with the aging population, like the largest population is the boomers are getting up in age. As they age more, the infrastructure needs are going to grow, and just making sure there's, better safety precautions for crossing the street or walking in a parking lot. Like all of those things are going to matter more.
Lena, this is Rebecca from Sanford. I had an opportunity for impact as really being able to take the power of the fact we are a regional organization. We represent both things from the county perspective and from the municipal perspective as we go to the legislature or any other organization that is really talking about some of these tough issues. I know that there are just changing perspectives about land use, about some of what was just mentioned about power, utilities, transportation, things like that, that I think we have a real potential, much stronger impact legislatively doing that. And then also figuring out if there's a way regionally to leverage some federal dollars in a different way. If there is a movement to move some of these programming areas back to the states, this organization would be particularly useful figuring out how do we leverage those dollars to get the most impact for our regional governments.
Thank you very much. Yep, those looks like we've got all those. And just for us to remember, next to the federal dollars, just add in parentheses block grants. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Mayor, but that's I gather that's part of what you're talking about.
All of the above, yes, ma'am.
Great. I see some more additions from Commissioner Lauder in the chat and Councilmember Freeman. I know we're adding those all in. Some of these are definitely dittos: AI, regional passenger rail, regional water sewer. I think we're going to an additional slide. Regional trash and recycling. Yep, solid waste. Oh, and I don't want to forget, I know, sorry, Ms. Green, shared a link in the chat as well.
Yeah, I'd like to just briefly comment about that. This
Yes,
is
please.
a very, very interesting study from the Urban Institute of a number of both COGs and MPOs on the subject of the interrelationship of planning, transit, and housing together. And Lee and others know that this is a big a topic that's important to me. So at least it's one I talk about a lot. And the study reached out to these organizations and said, do you think you should be talking about it? And they all pretty much yes, but are they actually doing it or doing anything about it? And the answer is not so great. So I think there's a recognition that these And I think I call it an opportunity because I know we have these standing now committees on transportation and housing and other topics. I'm on the one on housing, but I still keep asking why aren't transportation and housing considered together when it comes to planning? I think we have an opportunity to lead or be part of those conversations regionally.
Thank you. So oh, yes, please go ahead.
No, I was about to say, let me add to that with the transportation and housing, but also with the trend of industrial jobs, manufacturing jobs coming back, particularly into this region, tying in the transportation, housing, and work piece in the conversation as well, because we're seeing where we're almost pulling teeth to convince folks to provide a transportation system that can get everyone from home to work, back home, and to entertainment in between. But it's so obvious that that is what's happening in this region right now, that we are job manufacturers are coming in that are looking to be able to tell their workers, you can hop on this train, you can hop on this bus, you can hop on this microtransit, and this is your path to get from work to home. So we have a significant opportunity to lean into that conversation as a economic development showcase for this region.
Absolutely. Thank you for adding that.
Yeah, so I just want to summarize that one to make sure we write it down correctly. I think what both comments are talking about is sort of being less siloed with some of these critical topics for the region, specifically transportation, housing, and work or workforce, but probably could go across other areas. And maybe being a regional leader in the nation if we're able to do that successfully.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Awesome. Anyone else would like to add any to the list?
Yeah, this is Wilma. I just wanted to say that affordable housing and transportation, I think, is goes close together because, I mean, here in Moore County, we have 50. I think it's 53% of the people that work here don't live here, and because there's no affordable housing, there's more traffic on the roads. So I think that those two things are should kind of go together a little bit.
Thank you, Ms. Laney. Anyone else? Okay, we are going to move to our next letter, which is aspirations.
Where's the
should come up in 1 second. I just want to make sure, folks. So talking about what are our long-term goals for the region. So this is just aspirationally, if we are successful in working towards what we are working towards, what are those goals? And take a few minutes to reflect on that question. No apologies for kitten interruptions, Commissioner Smith. That is the best part of the night. All right, I'm gonna, as we're just slowly starting to get some folks sharing, I'm gonna share those out and sort of summarize some things we're hearing. Commissioner Smith shared that the Council of Governments, the region should aspire to be the best and provide excellent service and help to preserve unique community cultures as we undergo growth, which I think reflects very much Lee's sort of comment about how we've grown as a region that has many different communities within it. Councilmember DeShazer, ability to share resources and affect change faster. Councilmember Freeman, to be a safe, resilient region with world-class transportation, K through 12 schools, world-class universities, community colleges, and job markets. Commissioner Robertson, implement true regional transit, such as rail or including rail, and be able to manage and prevent flooding and stormwater emergencies from storms that are exacerbated by our growth. And I'm going to read these out, but please feel free to unmute if there's anything you'd like to add contextually that I'm not conveying. Commissioner Lauder, I saw you turn your camera on. Is that because you want to give context to your answers?
No, that's just because I realized I left it off.
Okay, that's fine. And yes, we definitely, to Commissioner Lauder's point, we do want to be the #1 cog in North Carolina. But also to be stable and resilient. So sort of these are maybe not fully dittos, but there's a stormwater flooding element he shares that I think has already been said. Having enough water supply for the region, accessing transportation funding needed, and CPRC structure. Actually, can you clarify that one, Commissioner Lauder, just quickly to make sure that we capture it right?
Yeah, so I think Lee has worked really hard to get us where we are. It's what I think is a stable structure, and I want to make sure whenever he decides to go 10 years from now, that move on to something else, that that we have a plan in place that we continue on, and we don't have a setback, that we continue to retain the folks we want to retain and train them and provide opportunities so they can grow, so that when whoever it is that steps away, that we've got somebody ready to step in and continue to lead us on.
Fabulous. Ms. Green, support successes and well-managed growth, talking about that housing transit connection, environmental sustainability and climate resilience, sustainable energy and water utilities that can support the region. That would be a ditto, at least to Commissioner Lauder. #1 cog in the country. Nice, upping the game. Contribute to economic development that also protects the environment. That seems to be something that may have already been said, but seems a little bit unique, so we can add that as a non-ditto. And Councilmember Freeman dittos the succession plan under CPRC structure. Is there anyone who hasn't shared something in the chat that would like to unmute and share any of their answers?
I think I don't know if this ties into the K through 12 conversation in world-class universities, but creating I don't know a better way to put it, but kind of a cradle to grave pipeline from education to workforce throughout the region, again to bolster the economic development portfolio.
Yep, so stronger pipeline from schools to jobs.
Absolutely.
Anything else? All right.
Just making sure
Oh,
from cradle to the grave is schools, jobs, and like the retirement side of it.
Yes,
thank you.
ma'am. Absolutely. That's exactly it. Thank you.
Thank you for capturing that. All right. So with that, we are going to move to the last letter, which is results. And so again, we're going to give you a few minutes. I know we've sort of adjusted a little bit with how we're doing this. Folks are welcome to put your answers in the chat. If you want to provide context, you can wait and share once we start going through the answers together. So results, how do we know that we've succeeded and what does success look like? Folks are putting stuff in the chat and we're getting it up on slides. Commissioner Smith, comments, results need to be measurable and quantified. Absolutely. Economic growth that comes not at the expense of sustainability, the success of the smallest and largest communities and everyone in between. Sustained membership from all local governments, definitely. And there's a ditto on that one for sustained membership. Controlled congestion because fewer percentage-wise people are in single occupancy cars. Residents that live long, productive and purposeful lives. A lot of public transportation options available across the region between walkable locations. Yeah. Commissioner Lauder has been chair before. He says that we are the ones being invited to strategic retreats for COGS around the country. Councilmember Baldwin, that we've moved from sharing ideas to implementing them. And we had an edit to the controlled congestion to be controlled congestion and air quality. Are there any that folks would like to add that have not been put in the chat or that folks want to expand upon? And Councilmember Freeman just added another land use that makes sense. Or land uses that make sense.
Do we have anything in here on climate and environment?
Climate and environment, anything specific or?
golly, I have very outrageous things that would be specific, but I don't know that we can tackle the planet. So let's just try and look towards net zero impact on climate impacts within the region, and
Net zero is, yeah, I just want to make sure we write
net
that
zero
down. Yep.
and golly gee, manage growth in ways that protect farms and forests.
Manage growth sustainably and protect farms and forests.
Yeah, thank you.
Fabulous, thank you. Any others that would like to share?
I would add quantitatively being able to show a high quality of life for all income levels within our region. So from the lowest income level to the highest, a significant quality of life for everybody that is a part of our regional community.
Thank you. All right. Looks like we've got pretty much everything written down that everyone said in the chat. So we're going to wrap up, and I really appreciate, thank you everyone for going through this full activity and providing lots of really great answers and thoughts. We are going to be synthesizing this information, as Lee said, and using it both just to help us guide the development of the strategic plan, but also to help us design the larger retreat that we will have with you all in November, tentatively November 15th, but we'll confirm it that that date works with folks. So this will be helpful as we're sort of designing the flow of the retreat and also who we may bring in to share some examples from other areas across the country. So if you can, and before I wrap up, I just want to thank Grace, Barry, and Hannah Schwett. I'm nervous I said your last name wrong. On my team who did the crazy work of keeping up with everything on the slides. So thanks to both of them. So
fantastic job there.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Thanks, everyone.
All right, so we are moving along in the agenda. I think that brings us to around the region. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, it is.
For around the region, I want to kind of pinpoint a couple of areas I particularly want to hear from. And of course, we have about 10 minutes. We need to get out of here, but I want to hear from particularly A, our Pittsboro folks, and B, our Wake County folks, and depending on how much time we have, others. But give us an idea of what your populations are saying, particularly as it relates to concerns about growth. I know with Pittsboro, the conversation about Disney is out there and definitely a big topic of conversation. With Wake County, the growth has been constant for the last couple of decades now. What type of response are you getting about growth from your population versus what you as elected officials feel about growth? So if we could start from a couple of the Pittsboro area folks and then go from there.
Okay, this is Pamela Baldwin, town of Pittsboro. So basically, we get mixed mixed signals. Some yes are for growth, and some yes are against growth. So that's how it has always been since the large developer came in. But what has to happen is that we have to work together with the developers so that basically We let them know what the town of Pittsburgh wants and try to see and ask them what they're looking for. And basically, we have to continue to tell them what the town of Pittsburgh wants, because that's very important. The population wants things a certain way. And so basically, those are the people that we represent. And we have to work for their best interest, as well as, again, we have to work with the development community also. So it has been very well with the Disney type thing. A lot of people have a different understanding that Disney actually is going to be a retirement community, 55 and over, and it's just housing. It has nothing to do, of course, with any type of amusement parks or anything like that. But people, of course, are concerned, and that concern is, when your place is growing like Pittsburgh is growing, there will always be people which are very, very concerned. They're concerned about water, they're concerned about transportation and continuous growth all around. So those are challenges that the town of Pittsburgh has to tackle.
Thank you very much
We
for
continue
that.
to go ahead. I'm sorry. And then we do continue to go forward with working on those things. So
Yes,
we
ma'am.
do have a lot of changes, but we have to look forward to those things and work through them so that we can be the best representatives for our constituents.
That's
Thank
right. And I saw in the chat pop up, Chairman Lauder said that the 55 and older crowd is very amusing. I couldn't agree more. Absolutely. Absolutely. As far as other comments coming out of the Pittsburgh area, Wake County area, lots of mixed signals on growth, or do you find a trend one way or another as far as a pushback against growth versus a desire for it?
There's a mixed signal. This is Chris DeShazer, Holly Springs. Yes, there's a mixed signal. If you watch social media, people will say no more growth, close the doors. However, we just opened Fuji Daiset today. Lots of jobs coming. And when we see things like that, the overall feedback is extremely positive. And so it's also an election season here so those that are going through it makes it a little bit interesting. But what I've noticed is that a lot of folks don't have an answer for what they think is responsible growth.
Amen to that. I'll add to that. It is interesting for me personally to see the folks that have moved into Johnston County, say in the last 3 years, complain about the fact that we are letting too many people move into the county. That is always an entertaining notion to me. If you've moved into a house that is 5 years older or less, and then decide you want to shut the door behind you, the consideration that goes into that thought process.
Yes.
Anybody else? Comments, concerns, notes from citizens about growth? All right, we will move right along into the chair's report. I would like to say that our staff has done a fantastic job as we approach this strategic growth conversation as far as Central Pines Regional Council is concerned. Lee and staff on down have jumped right on this request for us to look at where we are as a regional council and how we can face the challenges that are coming at our region quickly. And I very much appreciate it. So I just want to continue to give them a shout out for being incredibly responsive and incredibly organized and professional about approaching the challenges that we face in this region. And that's all I've got, Lee. So if you want to go on to your report, we're good to
go. Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Appreciate the comments. And I just, Hannah and Grace, thank you for jumping in. They're both relatively new to the organization and have done a great job so far. And we're just really thrilled to have both of them. I also have to shout out Elena. I told her in our chat, she's a natural facilitator, and it's really cool to see her work. She facilitates the council retreat for Raleigh every year and does other things, and just really proud of her. She does a great job. So wanted to say thank you to everybody for that, and thank you to you all for the great conversation and being open and being thoughtful. It is really valuable and great to see elected officials from across the region come together and talk. A couple other really quick things. I'm really enjoying the CPRC with Lee road tour. Staff's having a fun time making me look funny on a car, which is cool. But I think I've visited 16 communities so far, and the goal is to get all 50 by the end of the fiscal year. And so I feel good about the pace that we're going on that. So thank you to the managers I've already met with. And also, if a community doesn't have a manager, if they're a mayor council, we will certainly be reaching out to them as well and meeting with all 50 of our local governments. Finally, wanted to make you aware of a new series that we are launching around this idea of it being a connected region, and really trying to flex our muscles around the thought leadership piece around the region and the issues that we're facing as a region. And so November 13th is going to be our first Connected Region event that we hope to do quarterly around a different topic. And this is really going to be focused for policymakers, whether you're at local or state. Certainly for our local government members, we'd love to even see private business or chamber representatives at these conversations we're going to have. And the first one is going to be around water and sewer regionalization. It's a big topic across our region. There are a lot of our local governments that are thinking about it, talking about it, and there's some really good examples of communities that have done that. And so what we're thinking about doing is having still pretty rough right now on what we're doing. But we're going to have two panels, we think. One panel will be from the perspective of the communities that are providing water and sewer regionally, and talk about the process and how they do it. And we want to really encourage the back and forth discussion. And then we're thinking about a second panel that would include some key questions around the communities that are receiving that as a service or were regionalized, and how that impacts things like planning and land use and their own, how they get their water and sewer. And we hope to have a mix of technical experts and hopefully some elected officials on that panel, and a representative from the state as well. So look for us, save the date on that. November 13th, we believe, like 9 to 11. But we'll be in touch, and would really ask you to encourage your fellow elected officials and staff and others to join us. So with that, Mr. Chair, I'm all done. Thank you for a great meeting.
Hey, awesome. Very much appreciate that. Very much appreciate the information. I'll turn on my camera now that I'm done with soccer practice. But again, 8:01, we're doing pretty well with the timeliness. Is there any other business for the executive committee this evening? All right, fantastic. Hearing none, let's go ahead and adjourn this thing at 8:01. Sound good to everybody?
Thank you, sir. Thank you, everybody.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Everybody have a wonderful evening. Thank you for the fantastic input tonight.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good
Good
night.
night.
Good night.